very strong, deep earthquake, magnitude 6.6, strikes off Solomon Islands, basically northeast of Australia, right here as we see, off Vanuatu. This is it, 6.6 right here. This was around midnight on May 12, sorry, and this was about 14 hours later. This was a much shallower 10-kilometer depth, 5 magnitude. This was at 173 kilometers magnitude. We know that the crust is about 100 kilometers depth, so this is much lower than the crust. And we also had this one here, 5.2, which was again much deeper, 249 kilometers depth. That's the subduction trench, as you can see right here. And this is the one that we're talking about. This is the shake map of the area. And we could see that we don't have that many people, well, reporting it. There was only 2 reported it. And we do have a few sparse populations of these islands. More populated here. And it's right on the curve of the subduction trench. That's the tectonic fault that you can see right there. 2 people reported feeling it to USGS. The Solomon Island earthquakes. You could see the past earthquakes plotted here. And going to the aerial again. And this is Australia right here, as we see. Papua New Guinea area around here. Indonesia on this side. And the tectonics. We'll see the tectonics. The eastern margin of the Australian plate, one of the most seismically active areas of the world, due to high rates of convergence between the Australian Pacific plates in the region of New Zealand. There's New Zealand down here. As we know, the North Island has volcanoes, even a supervolcano, the Taupo volcano. The North Island, White Island volcano erupted December 9, as we know. It was a hydrothermal, the crater was filled with water, and with the super steaming caused the eruption. Right there. Again, New Zealand is all on the subduction trench right there. And that's the site of our earthquake. 300-kilometer long Asian Pacific plate boundary extending from Macquarie Island to the southern Kermadec Island chain, including the oceanic transform Macquarie Ridge, 2 oppositely verging subduction zone, transpressive continental transform. Since 1900, there have been 15 magnitude 7.5 and greater earthquakes recorded near New Zealand, 9 of these, and the 4 largest occurring along the near Macquarie Ridge, including the 1989 magnitude 8.2 on the ridge itself, and 2004 8.1 event 200 kilometers west of the plate boundary, reflecting interplate deformation. The largest recorded earthquake in New Zealand itself was 1931 of magnitude 7.8 in Hawke's Bay earthquake, the last magnitude 7.5 earthquake and larger along the Alpine Fault 170 years ago. Studies of the fault strain accommodation suggest similar events are likely to occur again. So, of course, we have a lot of stress there. The north of New Zealand, right here, the Australian Pacific boundary trench east of Tonga and Fiji to 250 kilometers south of Samoa. For 2,200 kilometers, the trench is approximately linear, as you can see here. And including 2 segments older than 120 million years. Pacific oceanic lithosphere rapidly subducts westward, here, westward. At the Kermadec, Tonga, and the northeastern edge of Tonga Trench, the boundary curves sharply westward and changes along 700 kilometers long segment from trench normal subduction to oblique subduction to a left lateral transform-like subduction. Australia Pacific convergence rates increase northward 60 millimeters a year at the southern Kermadec Trench to 90 millimeters at the northern Tonga Trench, so it goes faster this way. Significant back arc extending causes the consumption rate of the subducting Pacific plate lithosphere to be much faster, the spreading rate of the Havre Trough west of Kermadec Trench increasing northward from 8 to 20 millimeters a year, the southern tip of the spread center propagating into North Island of New Zealand, right there. Rifting it apart in southern low basin west of Tonga Trench. The spreading rate increases towards 60 to 90 millimeters a year in the northern low basin. Multiple spreading centers resulting extension rate as high as 160 millimeters a year. The overall subduction velocity of the Pacific plate is the vector sum of Australia Pacific velocity and back arc spreading velocity, increasing northward along the Kermadec Trench from 70 to 100 millimeters a year, along the Tonga Trench from 150 to 240 millimeters a year. So this is much faster, much faster. The Kermadec Tonga subduction zone generates many large earthquakes on the interface between the descending Pacific and overriding Australia plates. Pacific goes under, Australia goes over. Within the two plates themselves, and less frequently near the outer rise of the Pacific plates. Since 1900, 40 magnitude 7.5 plus earthquakes have been recorded, mostly north of 30 degrees south, but it's unclear whether any of the few historic magnitude 8 plus events have occurred close to the plate boundary, were under thrust events on the plate interface, or were interplate earthquakes. Now, as we said before, this earthquake is very deep. Okay, and the other one, where's the other one? And that one too is even deeper. Okay. Oops, why is it off? Okay, I'll put that on there. So these are very deep. This is the area that we're talking about. Now across the North Fiji Basin, to the west of this is Vanuatu here, Vanuatu, west of Vanuatu, the Australian plate again subducts westward beneath the Pacific, and the North New Hebrides Trench at the southern end of the trench, east of the Loyalty Islands. The plate boundary curves into the oceanic transform-like structure analogous to the one north of Tonga. The Australian Pacific convergence rates increase northward from 80 to 90 millimeters a year along the North New Hebrides Trench. But the Australian plate consumption rate is increasing by extension in the back arc in the North Fiji Basin. Back arc spreading occurs at a rate of 50 millimeters a year, most of the subduction zone except near 15 degrees south, where the D'Entrecasteaux Ridge intersects the trench and causes localized compression of 50 millimeters a year in back arc. Therefore, the Australian plate subducting velocity ranges from 120 millimeters a year at the southern end of the New Hebrides to 40 millimeters a year at the D'Entrecasteaux Ridge Trench to 170 millimeters a year at the northern end of the trench. So it's going at various rates. Large earthquakes are common along the North New Hebrides Trench and have mechanisms associated with subduction tectonics, though occasionally strike-slip earthquakes occur near the subduction of D'Entrecasteaux Ridge, the subduction zone of 34. 7.5 plus earthquakes have been recorded since 1900. And on October 7, 2009, a large interplate thrust fault, magnitude 7.6, in the northern New Hebrides subduction zone was followed by 15 minutes later by an even larger interplate event of 7.8 magnitude, 60 kilometers to the north. It's likely that the first event triggered the second of the so-called earthquake doublet. Yeah, so we have doublets, obviously. It's not unforeseen that these things are, of course, related to each other. And I just read that for you from from our, here we are. And I'll leave that for you as well. The description of the tectonic summary of the area by USGS. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.